Have you ever wanted to protect the narcissistic person in your life? Before all of you start shaking your head, no, I can see you. Sit with that. Because it's more common than you think. And if you really sit with that, you're like, I did that. Now, is some of this due to that whole trauma-bonded cycle? Absolutely. That idea that there's hope, that they can change, that this is someone you've built a life with or part of a life with, that you owe them something, or that you may stay in the relationship. So if you do stay in the relationship, you still may feel compelled to want to defend and protect something that you are in or that affects your kids or other family members. In some cases, it's just plain loyalty, that no matter how toxic their behavior is, that you feel that family loyalty is important to you, or that you feel loyal to someone because they are the parents of your children. The attitude then becomes, yes, they are a manipulative, cheating pain in the ass, but they are my manipulative, cheating pain in the ass. This also gets complicated because not all days in narcissistic relationships feel bad. There may be some days where it feels normal, where they're helpful, where it feels like they gave you good advice. You had good sex. You took a nice trip together. You like playing chess with them. You get glimpses of the person you saw earlier in the relationship, or of your friend before the friendship stopped being fun, or the parent on those rare, good, fun days. You may feel like the narcissistic person sometimes tries, whatever that means, that they had an angry outburst in the morning, and in the afternoon, they bring home a special dessert you love, or make the reservation at the restaurant that you had mentioned reading about in the news. And it almost can feel worse. But then it feels like a nice moment. So then, when perhaps someone makes fun of this narcissistic person in your life, or makes a joke at their expense, or puts them down, or mocks their insecurities, or criticizes them, you may feel tempted to jump in and say, oh, come on, let it go. They aren't that bad. Don't do that. You might say, like, let's not do this. Or you may even walk out of the conversation so as to not feel pulled into this criticism or joking about the narcissistic person. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, isn't that just enabling or denial? Sure, it may be partly that. But people in these situations have said, strangely enough, despite all I've been through, I did feel a need to protect them. And it wasn't just denial or not seeing it. People who were in these situations said, yeah, okay, I get that they're a jerk a lot of the time. And yeah, this is not a healthy relationship. But I'm not comfortable at sitting with a group that's just kind of going after them and attacking them. Them being the narcissistic person in your life. That I know their shortcomings, but I don't like this. These people who might be criticizing the person in your life might be people who are clear on the narcissism of the person that you're all talking about. And even that the behavior of this narcissistic person sucks. But when you're in this situation, you may also will say, I still somehow feel like I need to protect them. This may even happen in real time. Let's say if the narcissistic person is with you, and perhaps a family member is putting down your narcissistic sibling. I don't know, and you may jump in and defend and protect the narcissistic sibling, even though you have a really tense relationship with that sibling, knowing full well that no way would that narcissistic sibling have ever done that for you. Now, this can be very pronounced if you have a narcissistic adult child, which I think may be the most complex and painful survival dynamic of all for any parent. You may be literally disgusted and heartbroken by your child's behavior. There may have even been times that you've gone no contact or that they go no contact with you. But you may still have that parental instinct, even when they're adults, to step in and protect them against critiques and attacks by other people, despite you also recognizing that you do have a toxic relationship with them and you see the harm of their behavior. Again, what I am talking about here, this isn't betrayal blindness, denial, or just completely unseeing loyalty to someone. It's something more subtle than that. I see it as a sort of stew that's comprised of your empathy, your loyalty, and quite often, not necessarily even just protection of the narcissistic person, but people you actually really want to protect that are affiliated with the narcissistic person. Like I said, for example, your children, if it's their parent that you're protecting, or perhaps it's your other parent, the not narcissistic or protective parent. When you step in and protect another family member or partner, it may even be protecting something larger. You may recognize that your boss is a low empathy, entitled, selfish, attention-seeking, narcissistic buffoon. But they aren't doing unethical things. And you don't want your colleagues to be hurt by your division folding or the company folding, so you may protect the boss if it may protect the work you do. It's an interesting dynamic because what I'm talking about here is cases where you get it. You see the narcissism. You know that this person in this relationship is narcissistic or entitled or all the things are unhealthy and manipulative and deceitful, but you still attempt to protect them. This in some ways may actually be easier to do if you are out of the relationship. You may still want to, for example, continue to protect other people that are affiliated with a narcissistic person, like children or other family members or colleagues. So protecting the narcissistic person or defending them even when people are having a go at them feels like you're actually protecting who really matters to you, like your kids. And you may not simultaneously be enduring as much of the day-to-day abuse because you're no longer in the relationship. But lots of people do it. In fact, I'd probably argue that even more do it while they're still in the relationship. Now, some of this is trauma-bonded leftovers. You are accustomed to justifying, but protection is a different thing. Perhaps in some cases, when you're engaging in this protection of the narcissistic person, you're protecting a vision or a version of them that you still haven't fully let go of. Some of this is loyalty. This person may be a world-class jerk, but like I said, they were your jerk, and you are still connected to them, and may even agree with some or even a lot of what is being said about them. You may not tell the other people that they are wrong, but you may want to cool down the conversation. Now, make no mistake, if you do this, people around you are, again, they're going to fall back on that usual, you're codependent, you're still trauma bonded, you're in denial, maybe you're the enabler, and maybe even accuse you of gaslighting them. Be prepared for that. A tricky element of all narcissistic relationships are emotions that I call the magnet emotions, which are pity and guilt. And a narcissistic person, especially a vulnerable narcissistic person, can really pull for pity and guilt, especially when it feels like they're down on their luck, when there's failure to launch, when they don't have all the charm and charisma type stuff, and may instead, like I said, seem constantly down on their luck, socially awkward, not have that many friends, not have a career that's going well. And that pity and guilt you may have for their fragility, sensitivity, life not going the way they want, can also pull for you protecting them because you feel bad for them. If you can do this and clearly see what this relationship is about and not fall into a trauma-bonded self-blame cycle and not minimize the experiences of other people, then you are doing one hell of a balancing act and subtle dance. An example would be if you were to say, I know, he's tough, he's mean, and nobody wants to spend time with him, but let's just cool it down. We all know it, and talking about it isn't going to change it, in hopes of stopping the conversation. That is very different than shutting other people down, holding on to hope, or doing the whole protection thing without clearly seeing the narcissism or acknowledging the experience of what other people are going through with the narcissistic person. Some people worry if they do this protective stuff, maybe I'm still stuck. Maybe I really don't see it. Maybe I am a sucker because I did just stand up for them. I did protect them and they did not deserve it. And you know that they would never do it for you. Listen, if you do sometimes find yourself sort of protecting them, but are not getting sucked back into the toxic cycle, or your healing is not being held back, then it may be that you are doing, again, what can feel like the impossible balancing act of retaining your empathy or protecting another person, a narcissistic person, while not holding on to unrealistic hopes or even continuing to engage. Clearly, this dynamic may be most pronounced when someone may be insulting the other parent, your co-parent, while your kids are present, for example. And even though you know how narcissistic your co-parent is, you protect that other parent solely to protect your child. Obviously, that's a different kind of a presentation. Trauma bonding happens because we don't understand how these relationships work. Once you get it, it helps a lot. There can still be some vulnerability to these getting stuck in these cycles, especially if you were raised by a narcissistic parent. And that balancing act of being able to hold the multiple truths, the beauty of the word and seeing the good days as the break in the weather, but not as climate change. That's the win. The irony is, many very compassionate, empathic, flexible, good people get pulled into these toxic relationships. And I am pretty confident that the one thing that never happened for you in the relationship is that you were never protected, which only magnified the harms of what happened to you, and the asymmetry that you protected them and they didn't do it for you. The key is for you to be very clear on the why of your protective stance. Because doing it and thinking they will do it for you, that is definitely not happening. Thanks again.